Nothing makes me scared. Do you see my hands? Do they look like they're shaking to you? No.
She was 18, a rising model and young entrepreneur from West Palm Beach, Florida, admired online for her beauty and success. But behind the photos and business goals, a dangerous truth was unfolding. On a quiet evening in March 2024, while eating dinner and FaceTiming with friends, Kelvi McCray's life was violently cut short. Her 19-year-old ex-boyfriend, Keisean Shaw, entered her home with a gun, ending her life before turning the weapon on himself. Just a day earlier, he had threatened and assaulted her, and a warrant had been issued for his arrest. What appeared to be a story of ambition and promise quickly revealed a hidden pattern of obsession, control, and fatal escalation. You're watching Global Crime Venue, where viral fame hides chilling secrets. From TikTok dancers and Instagram couples to rising Facebook personalities, we reveal the dark side of the spotlight. When the perfect posts turn into tragedies, we break down exactly how it all unraveled. These aren't just online stories. They're real cases with real victims. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another true crime story that reveals the reality behind the image. In the next episode, we'll uncover another chilling case, one that started as love, turned into control, and ended in tragedy. Here's the untold side of what really happened. Kelvi McCray was known in West Palm Beach as a driven young woman with big ambitions. At just 18, she was already a model, a hairstylist, and an entrepreneur running her own beauty business. Her social media reflected a confident teenager focused on building a name for herself. Stylish photos, uplifting posts, and glimpses of a bright future ahead. Family and friends described her as determined, focused, and independent, someone who worked hard for everything she had. To those who followed her online, Kelvi appeared to be living a life full of opportunity and control. Privately, she was in a relationship with 19-year-old Keisean Shaw, a young man she had dated for over a year. What began as a typical teenage romance soon turned into something darker. Friends noticed his possessiveness, his need to monitor her actions, and his difficulty accepting the end of their relationship. When the couple broke up, Kelvi allowed him to remain in her home temporarily because he claimed he had nowhere else to go. That decision placed her in constant proximity to a man who refused to let go. The situation escalated when Shaw became violent, threatening her with a gun, choking her, and preventing her from leaving. She reported the incident, and a warrant for his arrest was issued. But before authorities could reach him, Shaw returned to the home. The red flags had already appeared: isolation, control, and escalating aggression. Yet by the time the danger was fully visible, it was already too late. In the days following the reported assault, Kelvi tried to return to normal life. She spent time with friends online, continued her business plans, and gave no sign that danger was still near. Authorities were still searching for Shaw, who had fled after the warrant was issued. Despite the seriousness of the previous incident, he remained close, unnoticed, uncontained, and still armed. On the evening of March 6, 2024, Kelvi was at home having dinner and chatting with 3 friends over FaceTime. It seemed like an ordinary night. But what followed within minutes would leave an entire community stunned and questioning how it happened. Those who watched through their screens became unwilling witnesses to something no one expected to see. The noise, the sudden silence, and the unanswered calls that followed turned confusion into fear. When police arrived, the truth of what had taken place inside that house would expose a chain of events that had been building long before that night. Have you ever seen a couple online and thought they were the perfect match? How well do we really know what happens behind the photos, the smiles, and the captions? Stories like this remind us that what's shown online often hides a darker truth. What warning signs do you think were missed in this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Keisean Shaw, 19, was a young man from West Palm Beach, Florida, whose name became known only after the deadly incident that claimed 2 lives. Before then, He lived a quiet life with little public information available about his background. What was known was his year-long relationship with 18-year-old model and entrepreneur, Kelvi McCray. Outwardly, their relationship appeared normal, but it slowly developed patterns of control and possessiveness that would later escalate into violence. Over time, Shaw began showing signs of jealousy and obsession. Friends noticed his controlling behavior and how he became easily angered when Kelvi spent time away from him. When the relationship ended, Shaw struggled to accept it. Despite the breakup, he continued living in Kelvi's home, stating he had nowhere else to go. This arrangement created a volatile environment, allowing constant contact between the two even after their separation. The ongoing proximity increased tension and left little space for distance or recovery. In the days leading up to the murder, Shaw's actions became more aggressive. On March 5, 2024, police records show that Kelvi reported a violent altercation in which Shaw threatened her with a firearm, choked her, and held her against her will. She managed to escape and contact law enforcement. A warrant for Shaw's arrest was issued the same day for aggravated assault with a firearm, domestic battery by strangulation, and false imprisonment. Shaw fled before he could be detained. That night, police reportedly located his vehicle and initiated a brief pursuit but discontinued it for safety reasons. With the warrant still active and Shaw unaccounted for, the situation remained unresolved. Less than 24 hours later, he returned to Kelvi's residence armed. Police later determined that his return was deliberate, not coincidental. By then, the events leading to the tragedy had already been set in motion. Investigators concluded that Shaw's actions reflected intent and premeditation. He was aware of the warrant and the pending arrest but chose confrontation over surrender. His inability to accept the end of the relationship, coupled with previous violence, indicated a clear pattern of control and dominance. The incident represented the final stage of a series of escalating behaviors that had been building over time. Shaw's background reveals a young man unable to manage emotional rejection or the loss of control in a relationship. His behavior demonstrates how quickly possessiveness can transform into violence when warning signs go unaddressed. Despite official reports and law enforcement involvement, intervention was delayed. When authorities finally arrived at the scene, both individuals had sustained gunshot wounds. Shaw's were self-inflicted, and he was later pronounced dead. After more than a year together, Kelvi McCray and Keisean Shaw's relationship began to deteriorate. What had started as a normal teenage relationship gradually turned into a pattern of control and possessiveness. As Kelvi focused more on her modeling and beauty business, she began to distance herself from Shaw, who found it difficult to accept the breakup. Despite ending the relationship, she allowed him to remain in her home temporarily because he claimed he had nowhere else to stay. That decision created constant tension and placed her in close proximity to someone who refused to let go. Shaw's behavior became increasingly unstable. Friends noticed that his communication with Kelvi shifted from affectionate to controlling. He questioned her whereabouts, demanded access to her attention, and appeared frustrated whenever she discussed her work or interacted with others. Over time, his attitude became more confrontational, and he began displaying signs of aggression. In early March 2024, the situation escalated. According to police reports, Shaw threatened Kelvi with a firearm, assaulted her, and prevented her from leaving the house. She managed to get away and contact authorities. Officers documented the incident, noting signs of physical assault, and issued a warrant for Shaw's arrest on charges including aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, domestic battery by strangulation, and false imprisonment. When officers located his vehicle later that night, a short police pursuit took place. The chase was called off for safety reasons, allowing Shaw to escape. He became a wanted suspect, but despite the active warrant, he remained at large. No immediate protective measures were established around Kelvi's residence, leaving her vulnerable to further contact. Following the incident, Kelvi attempted to return to her normal activities. She continued to focus on her business, stayed in touch with friends, and showed no outward sign of panic. Law enforcement had no indication that Shaw had returned to the area, and there is no public record of additional safety arrangements made for her. The sense of temporary calm gave the impression that the threat had subsided, but in reality, it had only paused. On the evening of March 6, 2024, events reached their conclusion. Kelvi was at home, having dinner and speaking with 3 friends on FaceTime. Without warning, Shaw entered the house armed. The friends on the call heard a disturbance, followed by silence. When officers responded to the scene, the situation had already turned deadly. March 6, 2024, was an ordinary Wednesday evening in West Palm Beach, Florida. Inside her home, 18-year-old model and entrepreneur Kelvi McCray was having dinner while chatting with 3 friends on FaceTime. The group's conversation was casual and light, giving no sign that anything unusual was about to happen. At approximately 9:40 p.m., the call took a sudden and irreversible turn. According to the police investigation, 19-year-old Keisean Shaw, Kelvi's ex-boyfriend, entered the residence without warning. A warrant had been issued for his arrest following an earlier domestic incident, but law enforcement had not yet located him. Witnesses later confirmed that he still had access to the property despite their breakup. That night, Shaw arrived armed with a handgun. On the FaceTime call, Kelvi's friends noticed her attention shift toward a noise in the house. Within seconds, they heard a series of loud sounds. The screen blurred, the phone fell, and the call abruptly disconnected. The friends attempted to call back but received no response. Realizing something had gone terribly wrong, one of them dialed 911, providing Shaw's name and location details based on prior conversations with Kelvi. When West Palm Beach police officers arrived, they entered through an unlocked door and found a chaotic scene. Kelvi was lying unresponsive near the dining area with multiple gunshot wounds. Nearby, Shaw was discovered with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Both were transported to St. Mary's Medical Center, where Kelvi was pronounced dead. Shaw was placed on life support and later died the following day. Investigators quickly established that the firearm used matched the description of the weapon Shaw had previously been seen carrying. The evidence indicated that he fired several rounds at close range before turning the gun on himself. Officers recovered shell casings, a single handgun, and Shaw's identification at the scene. Detectives reviewed the 911 calls and interviewed Kelvi's FaceTime friends, who provided key details about what they witnessed in real time. Their accounts aligned with physical evidence inside the home. Nearby security cameras captured Shaw approaching the property shortly before the shooting. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting he either had a key or gained access through an unlocked door. Further investigation revealed that earlier that day, police had attempted to locate Shaw following the warrant issued for the prior assault. During a separate incident, officers engaged in a brief pursuit but ended it due to safety concerns. Shaw's movements after that were unaccounted for until his arrival at Kelvi's residence that night. Inside the home, investigators documented the layout, blood patterns, and bullet trajectories. The evidence showed a targeted attack that lasted less than a minute. The medical examiner later confirmed that Kelvi sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the upper body, consistent with a close-range shooting. The official cause of death was ruled as homicide, and Shaw's death was determined to be suicide. Law enforcement classified the event as a murder-suicide and closed the case following the autopsy results and ballistic testing. Detectives concluded that Shaw's actions were deliberate and planned, supported by the previous threats, the active warrant, and his possession of a firearm despite those charges. The case gained national attention due to the unusual and chilling detail that the killing had been partially witnessed over a live FaceTime call. Though the footage was not publicly released, it provided investigators with a precise timeline of events, leaving little ambiguity about what occurred. When officers arrived at the West Palm Beach residence on the night of March 6, 2024, they were responding to multiple 911 calls reporting gunfire. Inside the home, they found 18-year-old Kelvi McCray unresponsive with multiple gunshot wounds. Her 19-year-old ex-boyfriend, Keisean Shaw, was also found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Kelvi was pronounced dead at the scene, and Shaw was transported to a nearby hospital, where he died the following day. The Palm Beach County medical examiner later confirmed the case as a murder-suicide. Detectives immediately began piecing together what had happened. The key evidence came from Kelvi's active FaceTime call. 3 friends had been on the video call when the shooting occurred. They told investigators that Shaw suddenly appeared in view, armed, and that the connection ended moments later. Their statements provided crucial confirmation of what took place and allowed police to identify the suspect within minutes. Authorities retrieved surveillance footage from nearby residences, phone data, and text message records to establish the timeline. These records revealed that Shaw had continued to contact Kelvi after their breakup, despite her efforts to distance herself. Investigators confirmed that he still had access to her home through a spare key, and that entry showed no signs of forced access. This indicated premeditation. He entered quietly and deliberately, waiting for a moment when she was distracted. As detectives reviewed prior reports, they found that a warrant had already been issued for Shaw's arrest less than 24 hours earlier. That warrant stemmed from a violent incident in which Kelvi had accused him of threatening her with a firearm and preventing her from leaving the residence. Police had attempted to locate Shaw after the report but were unable to detain him. The discovery of this unresolved warrant became a central point in understanding how quickly the situation escalated and how limited enforcement intervention had been before the killing occurred. Inside the home, investigators recovered the handgun used in the shooting. Ballistics testing confirmed it matched the firearm described in the earlier police report. Evidence indicated that Shaw brought the weapon back into the home intentionally. The autopsy report noted multiple close-range wounds, consistent with an ambush rather than a struggle. Law enforcement officials described the sequence of events as methodical. The investigation concluded that Shaw acted alone and had planned the attack in advance. There was no evidence of a confrontation or any communication between the two immediately before the shooting. Detectives determined that Shaw's actions followed a pattern common in domestic violence cases where control and possessiveness escalate into lethal behavior after separation. In the following days, news of the murder spread quickly across Florida and beyond. Major media outlets covered the case, focusing on the rare and disturbing detail that the crime had been witnessed through a live video call. Reporters examined the case as an example of escalating domestic violence that could have been prevented if intervention had come sooner. Law enforcement officials later acknowledged that the timing of the active warrant raised questions about the processes used to locate and arrest domestic violence suspects. Community members organized a large vigil on Singer Island, where hundreds gathered to honor Kelvi's life and raise awareness about violence in young relationships. The event also sparked renewed discussion about how victims can seek safety when living with a former partner. Local organizations used the case to push for stronger domestic violence protocols, faster warrant execution, and improved emergency response coordination. By the time the investigation concluded, all physical and digital evidence supported the determination that Shaw acted deliberately and alone. The official report closed the case but left unresolved questions about prevention, response, and systemic protection failures. The aftermath of Kelvi McCray's death became a reference point for future discussions among Florida law enforcement agencies and advocacy groups, emphasizing how rapid escalation, access to weapons, and delayed intervention can turn domestic disputes into fatal outcomes. And that concludes today's case. But remember, this is just one of countless stories the world has yet to uncover. Here on Global Crime Venue, our mission is to uncover the facts, honor the victims who can no longer speak, and make sure their stories are never erased. If what you heard today made you think, know this, more cases are on the way that will shock you, haunt you, and change the way you look at social media and the world around you. Be sure to subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. New investigations are released regularly. And trust me, you'll want to be here when the next story breaks. Before you leave, share your thoughts in the comments. What stood out to you most in this case? Your voice keeps these stories alive. Until we meet again, stay cautious, stay informed, and never forget, justice starts with truth. Global Crime Venue, uncovering the stories behind the screen.